Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, all the participants. We are about to start the third session of this presentation today. This session will be delivered by Dr. Amarendra Kumar Chandra, who is working as an associate professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at Arke Valley. Um, he did his bachelor's in civil engineering from NIT Warangal and master's in transportation systems engineering from IIT Kharagpur, where he received prestigious Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma Gold Medal Award, as well as a DAD Fellowship for in Germany. He did his master's thesis work by collaborating with TU Darmstadt under the supervision of Professor Stephen Ball. And later he did his doctor PhD from BITS Pilani. And after completion of the PhD in the year 2008, he worked in various companies such as L&T Ramboll, GMR Infrastructure Private Limited, HBS Engineers India Private Limited, for about 8 years. And apart from these industrial experience, he also served as a faculty member in institutes such as BITS Pilani and Manipal University Dubai campus, etc. Apart from his teaching and research activities, he is actually involved in various consultancy works and completed more than 55 consultancy projects in the areas of payment evaluation and design, payment material characterization, design of airside elements in the airport, traffic analysis, and pre-bid engineering. And apart from all this, he published over a dozen of articles in reputed journals and over 10 publications in peer-reviewed conferences. He guided more than 45 MTech students and one PhD student. And apart from all these things, he also served in numerous administrative positions in RGUKT, Arke Valley campus. He acted as a controller of examinations, administrative officer, as well as the director to Arke Valley campus. And he also acted as a member of several executive committee and governing council member to RGUKT. Sir, I request you to start your session, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rupas. Yeah, participants, you have to bear with me for about 45 minutes. Actually, we thought I thought of Dr. Ramchandra Villange's one session, maybe about 1 hour 45 minutes. Then later on, he said he would like to cover all the topic in 2 sessions. So we are definitely we are running out of time. So I will try to wind up my presentation within 45 minutes, right? So last 3 days, if you can see, we have discussed starting from the fundamentals of the rigid pavement, or I can say concrete pavement. I think now onwards we should not use the word called rigid pavement. It is we have to use the word called concrete pavements as well as the bituminous pavements, no rigid and flexible pavements. Even if you can see, majority of the international literature also nowadays you are not finding the word called rigid pavement or maybe flexible pavement. So let us also start practicing using concrete as well as bituminous pavements. So starting from fundamentals of concrete pavements, we have also a faculty member from IIT Madras discussed the fundamentals in mixed designs, and we have seen the testing of materials. Then Professor Reddy from IIT Kharagpur discussed the design aspects of concrete pavements for mainly national highways and expressways as well as state highways, IRC 58. And Dr. Swati Maitra, again from IIT Kharagpur, mainly discussed on the joints, how to design the joints in concrete pavements, what are the models they have developed. And later in yesterday's presentation, Dr. Dharmveer from IIT Mumbai mainly concentrated on double bars, placement of double bars, what are the problems generally we occur if you misplace the double bars. Then later, another friend, Mr. Suresh, he discussed the how they have calculate the stresses in concrete pavements using finite element methods, finite element analysis. Then another friend, Mr. Santosh, he mainly concentrated on the high performance concrete. Okay. In the morning session, again, a wonderful session, I can say. So Dr. Ramchandra discussed on the white topping. White topping, it is becoming very, very popular in many of the urban areas where, see, Dr. Ramchandra first he said, like by the road number 10, Banjara Hills. So they have done this white topping pavement. See, for that white topping pavement, and that time I was in GMR infrastructure, myself and a professor from Jain to Hyderabad, we have designed. So when we designed, initially we just checked the what is the existing pavement composition. We were surprised to notice that like the thickness of the existing bituminous layer was approximately 1.2 meters. Imagine existing only bituminous layer thickness, not only the granular layers and subgrade, all those things, leave it. Only thickness of the bituminous layer itself 1.2 meters. See, what is happening is every time when the road fails, especially in urban areas, people simply they are just putting one layer overlay on the existing pavement so that the thickness are becoming increasing cumulative and is continuously increasing. So that majority of if you can see many other urban areas, see the thickness of the bituminous will be more than 0.5 meters is very common. Of course, you will find even 1 meter also some of the cases. Every 6 months they put one layer. So in those cases, this definitely I can say the white topping. It was constructed, I hope, in the year 2012 and 2013. But last 7 years also the performance is very good. So that's why, like Dr. Ramchandra elaborately discussed about the white topping and disadvantages and how to calculate the stresses. Uh, then later on also he has explained the sustainable pavements, right? So sustainable, definitely I can say that rigid pavement is more sustainable. I have seen some of the questions raised by participants, like some of the disadvantages like noise, the rigid pavement causes, and the reusability. Suppose if the rigid pavement aggregates, in case of the bituminous pavement, definitely we can reuse the aggregate, but a rigid pavement, some difficulties are there. And finally, Dr. Ramchandra nicely explained, if we can treat the like if we can construct the rigid pavement properly, it will give you, it will give us the excellent service. Otherwise, there will be a lot of problems. Actually, during the class itself, while going this session, Professor Ramchandra session, I received some photographs from one of the construction company where they have constructed the rigid pavement approximately 2 years back. Now they noticed number of the problems with the rigid pavement. Like they found some cracks in the middle of the slabs, and even cracks middle of the slab, joints opening, and giant swellings, all those problems. And they asked me to visit also. That is okay, different story. So that's why if we can construct the concrete pavement properly, definitely it will give us very good service. And then otherwise there are some problems that you have to face also. One other disadvantage with respect to this concrete pavement is if there is a problem, let us say if you find a crack on the pavement, on the slab, one way is you can do some maintenance. However, sometimes it will be, if you can see the performance, like Sir also explained, like Ramchandra also explained, like techniques like stitching and spalling, such stapling techniques. So those techniques, we have to see the performance, how they work, all those things. But majority of the cases, we have also worked with, I have also worked in some of the maintenance projects. Whenever there is a problem with concrete pavement, let us say cracking, like any pop-ups, all those problems, if you notice in the concrete pavement, the only thing we have to remove, some cases, sometimes it's necessary to remove completely slab and reconstruct it. That is the one of the main problems. And this one, developers also yesterday when we discussed, I was really impressed by how the load transfer efficiency, all those things happen. So now in this session, I'm just going to throw some light on design of, of course, I have put here rigid pavement because it is there as per the guidelines, it's written as rigid pavement. Design of concrete pavement for low volume rural roads. Okay. So already we have discussed the how to design the concrete pavement for urban roads as per IRC 58. So this is actually, this design also in the very similar lines of IRC 58. Why I have selected this topic is, in our participants list, there are some are working in government agencies like PWD and Panchayati Raj. So definitely they are involving the design of the rural roads. So I thought of, okay, let us throw some light on the design aspects. Okay, so let me start my presentation. We are all know that the NRRDA, National Rural Road Development Agency, Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India, had taken initiation to connect villages with all-weather roads. Of course, you are all know what is all-weather roads means: providing a blacktop surface or concrete surface on the granular road so that it can sustain for all weathers without any problem. Generally, we call it all-weather roads. So if you can see, case of the rural roads, the traffic is a rural road generally has low volume traffic, consists of agriculture tractors, LCVs, light commercial vehicles, buses, motorcycles, and two-wheelers. So granular layers with the thin bituminous layer is most common option. If you can see, most of the rural roads, see, I think most of you are all, most of you from rural areas. See, under this PMGSY program also, if you can see, at the starting of the any rural road, you will find a board consists of the what is the pavement composition. In that pavement composition, most of the rural roads, if you can see, there is a granular sub-base layer, there is a granular base layer. Over the granular base layer, generally we call it WMM. See, I request the participants also, whenever you are using the word with respect to the various layers in the pavement, subgrade is okay. The next layer on the subgrade generally we put is a granular sub-base layer. Next one is the granular base layer. Generally, people call this a WMM layer or WBM layer. In the practice, also WMM, WBM. See, it's not a WMM or WBM. It's a WMM or a WBM. So, like the composition of the aggregate that we use for that IRC is named as WMM, but it's not a WMM. It's a granular base layer. The granular base layer may consist of either WBM or a WMM, depends upon the situation. That is different story. But you have to use the granular base layer. Then on the top of the granular base layer, in most of the village roads, you will find a 20 mm thick, we can call it a premix carpet. It's a generally we use the word called, I'm using the word that we call it a PC, premix carpet, because generally in your house also, if you find the thickness of the carpet is approximately 50 mm or 20 mm. That's what they are also using the word called premix carpet, or the premix carpet, a 5 mm thick approximately seal coat. This is the general composition that you find in most of the rural roads from Kashmir to Kanwar, wherever you go. In case of the rural roads concerned with bituminous pavement, you will find this is the composition. The thickness of these layers, of course, the granular sub-base layer, granular base layer, is mainly depends upon the strength of the soil, like strength of the subgrade soil. All those things are there. Of course, those things are discussed. Now, whenever if the concrete pavement is also an alternative for the rural roads, in case of the subgrade soil strength is low and drainage conditions, suppose in the villages also, if we can see within the villages, generally we go for the, within the villages, we go for the concrete pavements. Why? Because there will not be any control over the drainage. Drainage in the sense, whenever the water comes from the houses, water comes from, whenever there is overflowing water. So all those things generally they come on the road. So in case of the bituminous pavement, we all know that bitumen is like water is enemy to the bitumen. So in those cases, concrete pavement is definitely preferable. Under PMGSY program, of course, many rural roads have been constructed with the concrete pavements, and several roads also, several roads with the concrete pavements definitely will come up in the future. Let us see the scope of the IRC, like the guidelines, IRC SP 62 guidelines. And first, if you can see, IRC 58 guidelines deals with the concrete pavement for major roads carrying average daily traffic exceeding 450 commercial vehicles. CVPD, that is the commercial vehicles. The commercial vehicles means whose gross weight of the vehicle is more than 3 tons. Generally, we call it a commercial vehicle. So IRC 58 guidelines, so directly you can use the IRC 58 guidelines. You may ask me a question here. Sir, can we use IRC 58 guidelines for the rural roads also? Yes. If the commercial vehicles is more than 450, you have to use IRC 58 guidelines. See, some of the roads, even I have noticed, even in some, in my area also, if any two parallel highways we have, like national highways or two parallel, one national highway, other state highway, so two parallel highways are there. So in between the two parallel highways, if these two parallel highways are being connected by rural roads, generally the traffic, so to save the distances, people may prefer these rural roads. In some cases also, people even heavy loads or heavy commercial vehicles also prefer to travel on rural roads due to distances and all. So those cases we have to be very careful while conducting these traffic studies. We have to estimate what is the total number of the commercial vehicles that you are expecting on a particular road. If the number of the commercial vehicles is more than 450, you have to use IRC 58 guidelines. Otherwise, go for the IRC SP 62 guidelines. So the IRC SP 62 guidelines is for design of low volume roads of traffic less than 450 CVPT. Right. So, but what are the difference between the design of IRC concrete roads, which is the IRC 58 and IRC SP 62 means? There are little variation with respect to that one. Some of the principles have been taken from the IRC 58. However, there are some variations. Suppose if the traffic is very low, even when Professor Reddy explained about the design of pavements by IS 58, he said that we have to consider the low stresses and temperature stresses for the design of the pavement. But in case of the concrete pavements, constructed in rural areas, so when we have to construct the low stresses, when we have to construct the temperature stresses, when we can avoid the temperature stresses for calculating the stresses. So these are some of the differences that we have as compared to the IRC 58 guidelines. Those things let us see. Right. So yeah, of course, this document IRC SP 62 can covers the design principles of rigid pavement made up of conventional concrete, roller compacting concrete, and self-compacting concrete. Yesterday also, like one of our resource persons discussed what are different type of the concretes and about their properties. I don't want to touch that one. Let us see the width of the pavement. We know that in case of the rural roads means we go for the single lane road, say 3.75 meters, and of course 3 meters in case of the hilly areas. And the transfer joint spacing generally we give 2.5 to 4 meters may be selected. I just wanted to emphasize one thing here. In nowadays, if you can see, in case of the 4-lane roads, you know the width of the 4-lane road with the paved shoulder. One side it is approximately 4-lane means one side it is 2-lane. 2-lane means 7 meters is the width of the pavement. And I'm telling you the national highways and state highways main carriageways. In case of the 4-lane roads, so generally one side 2-lane, that is 7 meters is the width of the carriageway, and 1.5 meters generally we take the shoulder. That is 7 plus 1.5, 8.5, and there will be a shy distance. It depends upon the, like sometimes it will be 0.25 and sometimes it will be 0.5. Approximately the total width of the pavement in one side varies from 8.75 meters to 9 meters, right? See, there are a number of times we get a query from the contractors, where shall we cut the joints? Joints in the sense, one is the longitudinal joint as well as the transfer joints. See, contractor generally will be very happy. Suppose we have the 9-meter pavement. If we cut the joint, suppose we all know that in case of the highway pavement, national highway, state highway, rigid pavement, generally the transverse joint spacing we provide the transverse joint spacing of 3.5 meters, and the longitudinal joints as per the guidelines we have to cut at 3.5 meters, and transfer joints is 4.5 meters. The distance between transfer joint is 4.5 meters, and the longitudinal joint we have cut at 3.5 meters. See, in case of the 2-lane road, if you cut the longitudinal joint 3.5 meters, we have to cut one joint at 3.5, another joint at 3.5, that is 7 meters. Then there will be some spacing, that is shoulders and all be there. But majority cases, we get a query from the contractors, why don't we cut the longitudinal joint in between? Means total length of the, total width of the slab is, let's say 9 meters. Why don't you cut one longitudinal joint at 4.5 meters, so that you need not necessarily provide the 2 joints? But I have actually received a number of times this process when I have discussed with Professor Veer Raghavan of IIT Madras and Professor B.B. Pandey, late B.B. Pandey of IIT Kharagpur. And what they said, this crack distance is very important in case of the rigid pavement. If you increase the crack distance, there is a possibility of development of crack, into the joint distance, there is a possibility of development of cracks due to temperature stresses. That's why we should be very, very careful. That's what when Professor Dr. Ramchandra discussed in the morning, he said, in case of the white topping, see the panels, the dimension of the panel is approximately 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters. See, means 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters means you are providing the joints at very closer intervals so that the temperature stresses can be reduced significantly there. That's why here also you can see that the transfer joint spacing of 2.5 meters to 4.5 meters may be selected. So that will not be a problem. But I have when I designed some of the airfield pavements like aprons as well as the mainly aprons. So there, as per we have if you can see that airfield pavements, we have two guidelines: FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, or ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization. These two guidelines generally we use for the design of the airfield pavements. There, they have given one condition: the length by breadth ratio or length by width ratio of the slab should not be more than 1.25. Should not be more than 1.25. Accordingly, that is actually mainly based on the based on the various studies on the temperature. So finally, they have come to the conclusion the length by breadth ratio should not be more than 1.25. So accordingly, we have to see also here. So accordingly, we have to select the transfer joint spacing, right? Next, coming to the IRC SP 62 guidelines, what are the various factors that governs the pavement design? If you can see, one is not only this one, everywhere traffic is one of the very important factors that governs the pavement design. Traffic, tire pressure, and design period. Let us see that traffic actually here. If you can see, in case of the rural roads, generally already we have discussed low volume, not only light commercial vehicles you can expect on the rural roads. Okay, so generally you don't find the heavy commercial vehicles, but occasionally you may find one or two heavy commercial vehicles, but most of the cases you find the light commercial vehicles. That's why you can see that heavy vehicles are not expected on rural roads. The maximum legal load limit of single axle with dual wheel is 100 kilonewtons. I'm using the word called legal load limit. If you can see that there is two loads generally we consider. One is the standard axle load, other one is the legal axle load. Standard axle load generally we take in case of the flexible pavement design. So that we take it's 80 kilonewtons is the standard axle, and the legal axle that is the maximum load that can be allowed is 100 kilonewtons. So hence the recommended design load on dual wheel is 50 kilonewtons with a spacing of 310 mm center to center is considered. So we standard axle load of 80 kilonewtons, and here we consider the legal axle load of 100 kilonewtons. So if we can take a axle having the dual wheels on either side, right? So one dual wheel if we can take, so that is the 50 kilonewtons load. That is 25 kilonewtons on one wheel and 25 kilonewtons on another wheel. That load we consider for the pavement design in case of the rural roads. Tire pressure. So 0.8 MPa for truck with 100 kilonewtons axle load, and 0.5 MPa for the tractor trailer. You see, tractors are very common on the rural roads, but of course we do the design for the truck only 100 kilonewtons. So generally we consider a tire pressure of 0.8 MPa. And design period, if you can see, in case of the national highways and state highways, we go design period of 30 years. But here, minimum design period we need to consider in case of the rural roads is 20 years. It may be taken up to 30 years, nothing wrong, but minimum is 20 years. Yeah. Now, here, the design traffic for thickness evaluation. I request everyone kindly concentrate on this slide. It's very important. This is the only slide is governs the rest of the design aspect. Let us see that for traffic less than 50 CVPD, commercial vehicles per day, only wheel load stresses need to be considered for the design. Okay, only wheel load stress, no temperature stress is to be considered for the design. Why? See, imagine in a 24 hours in a day, only 50 vehicles are expected to pass on a road. 50 vehicles means don't know when it may go. one vehicle maybe in the model, it's 50 vehicles means approximately it is approximately if you can count, maybe let us say 3 vehicles per hour in daytime, maybe 1 vehicle per hour in the night time. So the total put together 50 vehicles. So this 50 vehicles also. So whenever see when Professor Reddy explained about the temperature stresses, so he said the daytime when the temperature differential of temperature. See, temperature stresses means you please keep this point in mind. The differential of temperature in the sense, what is the temperature on the top fiber and what is the temperature on the bottom fiber. If the difference of these temperature is more, then only temperature stresses are possible. Suppose if you can see in case of the white topping also, when SAR explained there are 3 types of white topping. One is the thin white topping, the ultra thin white topping, and conventional white topping. If you can go for the ultra thin white topping, the thickness of the concrete layer is less than 100 mm. When the concrete layer thickness is less than 100 mm, the difference of the temperature on top fiber and bottom fiber will be very, very less, because whenever there is a heat on the top fiber, so temperature this one it will transfer to the next level and go to the bottom. But when the difference of temperature is more, when the thickness of the slab is more, when the thickness of the pavement is more, generally the difference of temperature is also more. So difference of temperature is always a problem actually. So now you can see here 50. So that's what, if 50 CVPD means, so very rarely in our only 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles you can expect on that one. So in that time, the difference of the temperature and all those things need not necessarily to consider for the design of the pavement. That's what given in the guidelines. Because that see, whenever the vehicle is passing, that time there may not be, you cannot find even the maximum difference of the temperature. Suppose in the noon time, you don't expect even the vehicle on the like commercial vehicles on the rural roads. That's why when the traffic is less than 50 CVPD, only wheel load stresses need to be considered, not required to consider the temperature stresses. Then you can see that for the higher traffic, for the traffic higher than 50 CVPD and less than 150 CVPD, you need to find out the stress due to temperature as well as the stress due to load need to be calculated, and we have to sum up the what is the maximum stress due to temperature and what is the maximum stress to the wheel load, that is 100 kilonewtons wheel load. So accordingly we can find out what is the total thickness is required. Next you can see that for traffic exceeding 150 CVPD and less than of course 450 CVPD, fatigue can be real problem. Fatigue, of course, we all know that a cracks develop from the bottom of the pavement, that we call as fatigue is the real problem. In case of the IRC 58, see if you can see the IRC 58, all the major highways, the rigid pavement design of rigid pavement for the major highways is mainly depends on the main failure that we consider for the design of the rigid pavement for major highways is the fatigue. But here also, if the traffic is more than 150 CVPD, you need to consider the fatigue failure also for the design of the rural roads. Sirs, actually, I have involved when I was in BITS Pilani campus. We were the principal technical agencies, PTA, for NRRDA. So that time we have a number of the rural roads DPRs were scrutinized by us. Number of DPRs we have scrutinized, approximately I can say more than 450. Later on also, I engaged some job in NRRDA. That time also I have scrutinized number of the DPRs. So most of the cases that we found that the traffic, especially commercial vehicle traffic, either it will be less than most of the rural roads. We found that the commercial traffic means total number of the commercial vehicles on rural roads, generally it will be less than 50, or it may go into the second case, that is in 50 to 150. Very, very rarely, very few cases that we found the commercial vehicle traffic is more than 150 CVP. That's why for the design of the rural roads is very, very easy. Just you need to find out the stresses due to the load, or maybe stresses due to load and temperature. Even need not necessarily to go for even fatigue failures or fatigue failures, right? So most of the rural roads fall in the case 1 or case 2. That's what you can. We have the to find out the total number of the vehicles. This is the formula, of course, you have seen even in case of the bituminous roads, and this is the formula generally we use to find out the total traffic, total number of the commercial vehicles at the end of the design period, where A is the initial traffic and R is the growth rate. Okay, so then N is the design period. Generally, we consider N is the design period. Generally, we consider 20 years. And you please see here last statement in this. For cumulative fatigue analysis, only 10% of value obtained from the above equation is considered. I hope you study the IRC, most of you study the IRC 58 guidelines, where in case of the IRC 58 guidelines, we consider 25% of the total number of the commercial vehicles that we consider for the design. Why 25%, why 10% means we are expecting that approximately 25% of the vehicles passes along the edge of the pavement. Nobody would like to travel along the edge of the pavement, right? Definitely they give some space from they travel. In case of the rural roads, nobody would like to travel on the edge of the pavement. Generally, they go in the middle of the pavement. Suppose if you take the width of the vehicle, approximately 2.5 meters, 3.75 meters is the width of the pavement. We have a sufficient gap of 0.5 meters either side. So that's why CA has, but these guidelines, like only 10% of the vehicle need to be, total number of the vehicle need to be considered for the pavement design. Okay, this point I request you kindly remember. Next, how to find out the, see in case of the, this one, rigid pavement design, for the flexible pavement design, CBR value, strength of the subgrade we express in terms of the CBR, and for the rigid pavement design, the strength of the soil we express in terms of the K, that is the modulus of subgrade reaction. How to find this modulus of subgrade reaction is, we have the generally standard method to find out the modulus of subgrade reaction is the plate flow test. However, so nowadays, none of the organizations or maybe the contracts, they are not finding the modulus of subgrade using the plate flow test. There is very good relation between the modulus of subgrade and CBR value. So using this CBR value, you can able to find out the modulus of subgrade reaction. That's what there is a, you can see here, here, so there's a relation given here. Of course, IRC 58, this relation is different, and here it's different. Sometimes if you use the plate, really the plate that you're using for finding the modulus of subgrade reaction, that always matter. Generally, we have to use the 750 mm dia plate. But however, 750 mm dia plate means you have to put more layer to have a standard deflection. So to avoid that one, you can go for even 30 mm dia plate also. If you go for the 30 mm dia plate, we have this relation to find out what is the modulus of the subgrade reaction for the 75 mm or 750 mm dia plate, 300 mm. 300 mm dia plate you can go for. So you can find out what is the modulus of subgrade reaction, 70 mm, 750 mm or 75 centimeters dia plate. That is the modulus of subgrade reaction that you arrive at with 75 centimeters or 750 mm plate. That we have to consider is the actual modulus of subgrade reaction. Any other plate, if we can use, we have this relation. Any other means only here in case they have given 300. So that if we can use, this is the relation that we have to use, right? And here I just wanted to stress more on the characteristics of subbays. So in case of the rural roads concrete pavement design, you can see that good quality compacted granular by cement treated layer provided below the concrete slab is termed as subbase. But if you can see IRC 58 guidelines, as per IRC 58 guidelines, if you can see the cross section of the pavement, on the subgrade, we have a GSP layer, that is a granular subbase layer. On the granular subbase layer, we have again we also call it a subbase layer, but it is treated with the treated with the either bitumen. Maybe we can go for the treated with the cement. I can call it generally a terminology we use for that. It's a DLC layer, dry lean concrete layer. On the dry lean concrete, we place the PQC. Of course, in between we have the polythene sheet that you all know. But in case of the concrete pavement, in case of the rural roads, you can see that a compacted granular by cement treated layer provided below. Directly you can provide a compacted granular and cement treated layer over which you can place the PQC. Here you can see that what are the advantage of providing this subbase layer. We are all know that one. I don't want to go that one. So we have here, there are different type of subbases, right? So for the traffic up to 50 CVP commercial vehicles, 75 mm WBM grade 3 / WMM. I request you please go for the WMM. Don't, of course, earlier days, see, some of the forensic investigation where I have involved, whenever you go for a widening of existing two lane to two lane with the paver shoulders, all those things, I found that in some of the forensic investigations where the pavement failures, the failures of old roads, I have noticed that the granular, granular base layer that is constructed with the WBM, that is waterborne mechanism, they are very, very strong. Of course, nowadays we are not using that one WBM, and most of the cases we are going for the WMM only. But see, wherever these plants are not available, and economics is the main concern. So in those cases, you can go for the high cost. It is very easy to construct the WP as compared to WMM. But advantage of having this WMM layers is you will get the uniform mix, right? So 75 mm WBM grade 3 by WMM may be provided over 100 mm GSB with CBR less than 30, CBR not less than 30%. Liquid limit not less than 25 and PA not less than 6. Okay, 100 mm GSB is required. GSB is mainly like subsurface drainage. Mainly it's a subsurface drainage. For that purpose, we have to have the GSB of 100 mm. Over the 100 mm, you can have the only 75 mm thick WBM or WMM. On that, you place the one plastic sheet and have the like PQC layer, a pavement quality concrete layer. That is for the less than 50 CVPD. And or you have another thing. Suppose in case of the villages where you don't get the aggregate, let us say, you can go for the 150 mm cement by lime by fly ash treated marginal aggregates or soil with minimum, or soil also marginal aggregate soil with minimum usage of 3 MPa at 7 days with cement and 28 days with lime by fly ash. So you have to get the UCS value, unconfined compression. I'll in the next slide I will explain you where we have constructed one soil cement stabilizer soil layer. Okay, that I'll explain you. So you can see this one interesting thing here, because why I told you that I'll stress more on this on next slide, because nowadays even if you can see IRC 37 latest guidelines, 2018 guidelines or previous guidelines also, we have different pavement compositions. One among those different pavement composition nowadays is becoming popular. Now I am involving in design of road, design of Vijayawada bypass road. Okay, where we have two sections. So the NHAI asked us, provided the pavement composition. They suggested to go for the means they have not given the what is the values, but they suggested to go for a pavement composition consists of a granular like CTSB layer on the subgrade, a CTSB layer, cemented subbase layer, cemented then over that one cemented base layer, over that like deep cemented base layer. On that, like directly they asked us to go for very thin bituminous layers. Right, thin bituminous layers means if you can see that DBM layer and as well as the BC layers, they are thin bituminous layers, because to reduce the thickness of the bituminous layers, you are all aware that see most of the failures in case of the bituminous pavements where I have involved, like in the forensic investigation, we notice that it's not because of the subgrade. It's not because of the subgrade. It's mainly because of the failure in bituminous layers. Sometimes the excess bitumen, sometimes the less bitumen, sometimes the aggregate gradation is not proper. Okay, sometimes the air voids are less. Most of the cases, see, generally we have some misconception that whenever the pavement fails, there may be a problem with the subgrade. Not like that. Not like that. So that's why to reduce the total, see, always I suggest you, always in case of the bituminous pavements, always I suggest you go for the thin bituminous layers. Thin bituminous layers. You know, I'll give you one example. The Hyderabad airport, you know the pavement composition of Hyderabad airport, a 300 mm thick granular subbase layer, 450 mm thick granular base layer, 75 mm thick bituminous base layer, that is DBM, and 50 mm thick is the bituminous surface layer. Total thickness of the bituminous layer is only 125 mm. But in some of the cases, I have noticed, I have involved in one of the projects from Varanasi to Aurangabad, which is in UP. So where the thickness of the total bituminous layers is more than 250 mm, which is all very, very dangerous actually. Okay, so all dangerous because higher the thickness. So that's why here you can see that. So that's why in the recent guidelines, if you can see, they have suggested to go for the cement treated base layers as well as the cement treated sub base layers. Why these cement treated base layers and sub base layers? Because of having a strong basis, strong sub base layer and strong base layer. One thing you always please remember, if you can go for the cement treated sub base layers, actually the drainage is a real problem that we have to take care of. We can conduct the permeability test and we can definitely work on that. So cement treated sub base layers and cement treated base layers we can go for. You can significantly reduce the thickness of the. Of course, in India still the construction of the cement treated sub base and base layers all are infant stage, and performance also nobody knows how they have performed all those things. But however, we are in the opinion that they'll definitely perform better. But since you are providing strong base layers here, that's why now here you can see that 150 mm cement by live fly ash treated marginal aggregate soil or soil with minimum usage value 3 MPa, that also can be provided as the base layer. Here I can say the sub base layer in case of the concrete pavements, in case of the rural areas. Then quickly you can see that a traffic from 50 to 150 CVPD means there you have to go for the 75 mm WMM grade 3 or WMM may be provided, or 100 mm GSB, the same composition what we have discussed previously, and 100 mm thick cementitious granular layer with the minimum UCS uncompleted strength of 3 MPa at 7 days or with cement. So UCS 3 MPa at 7 days with cement or 28 days, same UCS at 20 days. It is because other material, cementitious material like lime and fly ash, which will take little more time to gain the strength. So next, the last one is traffic from 150 to 450 CVPD. Again, the base layer composition is 150 mm here. So earlier two cases 75 mm, 75 mm. Here 150 mm WMM or WBM may be provided over 100 mm GSB. So everywhere the GSB thickness is 100 mm. So depends on the traffic, the thickness of the base layer changes. That's what we have to provide, and over which we can go for a concrete pavement layer, right? So now just quickly I wanted to discuss, because the people still I have, when I discuss with the industrial persons, even academicians also, they said this one construction of these layers, construction of the one is the cement treated layers is very, very difficult. Even we don't have proper equipments. Some this misconception is there. So I just wanted to show you. See, one of the projects where we have constructed the cement treated layers, right? Cement treated layers. On the cement treated layers, again we have provided the one case we have provided the this one concrete layer, that is PQC layer, and another case we have provided the like bituminous layers. Let us just quickly see that one. See, like soil stabilizer base layer. So here, that's what, as we discussed in the previous slide. So we can go for the directly a WMM layer, or we can go for the soil stabilizer layers. Suppose if it is a WMM layer and all, these are the conventional practices, and everybody are working and everybody knows that one. Just that's why I just wanted to show quickly how we can construct the soil stabilizer base layer. Suppose in one case that we have used this is the type of the soil. You can see that the grain size analysis, like gravel is more than 10%, sand, this is the percentage of sand, and classification of the soil is like sandy clay soil. These are the Atterberg limits and all those things. And this is the soaked severe value of such soil is 7.3. The important parameter in case of the stabilization, when you go for the soil stabilization, so the important parameter is the UCS, unconfined compressive strength of the virgin soil, direct soil is 0.4. And you can see here, then we have added cement to the soil. Like in case of the rural roads, they have suggested to add the cement to the soil or aggregate, so that you can, again, I request to kindly observe the statement. 100 mm thick cementitious granular layer with 3 MPa UCS. Here also you can see that 100 mm thick cementitious granular layer with minimum UCS of 3 MPa at 7 days with cement or 20 days with lime, and lime over 100 thick cementitious naturally available material with minimum UCS of 1.5 MPa, right? So naturally available material means you can use the soil. If the some gravel are present, gravel is present in the soil, that will be very good. Actually, that's what you can use the naturally available material. You can add cement that one, and minimum UCS value of 1.5 you have to achieve. So we have taken a soil. Actually, this road we have constructed a service road in Hospet to Hungun project, which is in Karnataka, like using the stabilizer. This one there we have constructed small strides. We have constructed this one a rigid pavement as well as the bituminous pavement. Now this is you can see that this is the properties of the soils, and you can see that laboratory test on stabilizer soils. When you add the material, the combination soil alone, these are the OMC and MDD that we got, and the UCS value also we have seen 0.4. Then soil plus 2% of cement. Yes, soil percent of 2% of cement, we got the UCS value of 1.64. In the previous slide that we have seen, the UCS value should be a minimum UCS value should be 1.5. On the 1.5 on the stabilized soil, we can go for the granular with cement-treated granular layer. That is the one of the options that's given in the IRC SP 62. So in this case, even with the 2% of the cement itself, we got the 1.64 is the UCS value, unconfined compression strength value. So, so I can straight away say that this with the 2% of the cement, we can directly use the 2% of the cement for construction of the stabilizer layer. Then another very important test that we need to conduct in case of the stabilizer layer is the wet and dry test. Loss in wet and dry test. What is meant by wet and dry test means, I'll just to show you in the next slide. These are the samples. Actually, we have some even still in IRC guidelines. See, they have given like you can you have to find out the UCS value of the specimens, and UCS value should be this much, all those things. But what is a standard sample that we have to prepare for the UCS value? Those details are not given even in case of if you can see that IRC guidelines. So we have taken some of the literature or information from the TRL, transportation road. I request participants who are working in the area of pavements, you just refer the TRL guidelines, transportation research laboratories, road research laboratory guidelines, TRRL or research laboratory guidelines. Their beautiful guidelines are available for the cement stabilized materials, those things. Of course, even IRC also recently released more guidelines for the stabilized materials. Here, this is the size of the mold that you have to prepare of 100 dia, and the dia of the mold is 100 and the height of the mold is 115 or 116 generally. So this one you have to prepare this one for conducting the UCS test, and you have to cure it as per the standard specification given this one. And finally, what I said that there is something called wet and dry test. See, as I told you, even in case of the IRC 37 guidelines, where the guidelines is suggesting to go for the cementitious or cement stabilizer, cement treated subbase or cement treated bases, and for all those things you have to conduct this wet and dry test. So wet and dry test, what is meant by wet and dry test means very simple test. You have to prepare the mold, cure it, dip in the water for 2 days and take it out, and you have to do some scratching on using the brush. You have to do some scratching on the mold. See, mainly this test is to be conducted to check the durability of the cementitious materials, or to check durability is one of the major issues in case of when you are using the cementitious materials for the stabilizing. Okay, because see, you are using very low quantity of cement. Suppose in case of the PQC, so morning also when we discuss, if you go for the M40 grade concrete, approximately you use more than 400 kgs of cement. But whereas these cases, 2% of the cement, approximately 50 or 60 kgs of cement per meter cubic use. So in those cases, definitely there is a possibility of durability over a period of time. To check that one, you have to conduct the wet and dry test. So here, so like that, we have to dip into the water, and we have standard specification for the wet and dry test also, IS specification as per that one. So simple, I am telling, it's a total 24 days test, this one. 2 days, in the 2 days means that also there's a time is given. 2 days means 48 hours totally. So in that we have to dip in the water approximately 46 hours. Then you take the sample hours, dry it for some time, and give the like scratches. Then again you take the what is the weight, and then you put it in the water. Like that you have to perform this test. At the end of the 12 cycles, you have to check what is the loss of weight. We have to check loss of weight. That's loss of the weight in wet and dry test should be less than 14%, so that we can use that that soil stabilized soil for the construction work. Here you can see that even in case of the for the 2%, I'm getting approximately 13.4% of the loss in weight in wet and dry test. And for 4%, 6.68, and 6%, 3.56. Adding more cement is again dangerous. There will be some cracks on the surface, and it will be very, very difficult to deal with those cracks, because those cracks will penetrate into the upper layers, and finally it will be difficult. So that's what we have to ensure, that we have to see that we have to add less cement and get the sufficient strength, and finally so that will work wonderfully. That's what. So these are the samples. You can see this is the sample after wet and dry test. These are the tested usage samples, right? Now I'll quickly go through that. This one. See, this a lot of work on the stabilization in 1980s also in India. A lot of work has been carried out. But now people have applied with respect to stabilization. Why? Why means because whether we can get the uniform mix or not. If you can see if the mix is not uniform, what are the problems that we face in later stages? So because of that, so people are really now also people are afraid going for the stabilization. But in some of the project recently where I was involved, I have straight away suggested to go for the stabilization where the soils are very weak. Suppose in case of the subgrade soils are weak, generally we have two options: whether we have to replace the subgrade with some other soils, or you have to go for the stabilization. I have suggested stabilization because very beautiful equipments are available even in India, like Vidgen. They have very good equipment, so that all the stabilization and all the equipment can do at a time. It will plow the soil, it will mix the stabilizer, add the water, and finally mix the stabilizer, soil and water, finally compact it. Everything will go at one go. Everything can be done at one go. That's why here we have the two types of stabilization practices. One is the mix in place stabilization or plant stabilization. You can go for the mix in place stabilization in case of the rural highways. So no problem. You can get is the uniformity. I can assure you that 85% of uniformity you can definitely get even in case of the mix in place stabilization. So here you can see that where we have just placed the soil on this, then you go for the just to make the grids on the soil, right? These are all with our guidance only. The site people have executed the stabilization work. So here, so generally these grids we have to see that if you are using the 2% of the cement, what is the quantity of the cement is required for stabilizing this much of thick layer. So accordingly, you have to make the grid. Generally, we know that a cement bag contains 50 kg. For the 50 kg of cement, what is the total quantity can stabilize, right? According to percentage that need to be calculated initially. Accordingly, you make the grids, then place the cement bags and just spread the cement. Then you can see that you have using the agriculture equipments which are available everywhere. Use that one. You can you can mix it if required. Go for the 2-3 trials, so it will be completely mixed. Then after mixing of this one, go for the grading. Grading also very important. You have to do the grading to have the camber. Then of course these are the some of the equipments. These are available or maybe suggested by the IASA guidelines. So use the different type of equipment. You can use this one, or as I suggested, so you have the very good, wonderful uniform mix. So you can go for the Vidgen stabilizer equipments are available. Even you can Google it. You can get a lot of information. Then after mixing the soil with the stabilizer, the very important thing that we have to do is the watering. Okay, this watering also we have to find out what is the total quantity of the water is required. See, very important aspect that you have to remember here in case of the stabilization is the moisture. Moisture should not be more than the optimum, should not be less than the optimum. Of course, little bit the variation is fine, but that's what we have to see that we have to add the moisture. Then after adding the moisture, also once again you have to mix the mix using the agriculture equipment, so that uniformity, you can get the uniformity. Then after completion of this one, go for the rolling. Then rolling also, there is different patterns of rolling is given here. So this is the rolled surface. You can see it's a very nice, very good surface. Then after completion of the rolling also, you have to do the quality checking by checking the densities using the sand replacement method. So these are the different steps that are involved. So I request you, so wherever there is a possibility, go for the stabilization, because in the stabilization process, one thing is, because since the IRC guidelines, IRC SP 62 guidelines, they have mentioned to go for the stabilization in case of the rural roads. It's better to go for the stabilization. Even if you have any doubts with respect to stabilization, anytime you can, my phone number is there, my email ID is there, you can like send queries. Definitely we can try to help you. Even tomorrow also we have another expert who worked in the department of roads and building department for several years, engineer Bhavan Rao Garu. So he is going to deliver some construction aspects. That time also, definitely you can ask if you have any queries with related to stabilization or construction aspects also. So this is the one, right? So you can easily get this one. So this layer can be used as a subbase in case of the concrete rural road concrete pavements, right? Next, I just wanted to, previously we were discussing about the K value, then afterwards I just discussed about the subbase, all those things. Then after construction of the subbase, the one important aspect that we have to see is what is the K value that we need to take for the design, right? So in case of the IRC 58 also, we take the design K value on the DLC layer, or I can say that a subbase layer. Similarly, here also we have to take the design K value. I request all the participants, I hope you are getting hungry. I request you, please stay with me for another 10 minutes only. By 1:30, I will end the session. I'll try to end the session. Right. Here, the K value, you can see that for the granular subbase, the effective K value may be taken as 20% more than the K value of the subgrade. See, I have suggested, I have explained you, there are two types of subbase. One is the granular subbase, other one is the cement stabilized subbase. In case of the granular subbase, only 25% more value you have to take, the K value you have to take. In case of the cementitious subbase, right, there is a table is given here. So in the guidelines, simply they have given for cementitious subbase, effective K value may be taken as double the K value of the subgrade. That you can take it double, or some a table is given here. If you know the soaked CBR value of the subgrade based on thickness of the cementitious subbase, what is the K value that can be taken for the analysis. Now, properties of the concrete. Here, only one thing I just wanted to discuss, because last 2-3 days you have a number of times heard this the properties of the concrete and what is the grade of the concrete to be used, all those things. Please remember, in case of the rural roads, we have to use the minimum grade of the concrete is M30. In case of the highways, national highways and state was M40, but rural roads minimum grade of the concrete is M30. That we have to ensure that. Then, of course, the flexural strength should not be less than 3.8 MPa in case of 3-point bending. So 3-point loading, it should not be less than 3.8 MPa. Suppose in case of the national highways and all, 4.5. Generally, here it is 3.8 MPa. And the modulus of elasticity, of course, we have a relationship between the modulus of elasticity and characteristic compression strength of concrete, that is 5,000 root FCK. If you can put even 30 MPa, 30 is FCK, you will get little bit less than this one. But however, in the guidelines is mentioned that concrete gains the strength over a period of time. Safely, you can take 30,000 MPa and modulus of elasticity, and 0.15 is the Poisson's ratio for the analysis. And you can see here the fatigue behavior of the concrete. Generally, for in case of the national highways or IRC 58, what IRC 58 tells us, 90% is the reliability. Here, the important aspect that I want to tell you is what is meant by reliability. Reliability means 90% reliability means at the end of the design period, there is a chance that a 10% the pavement may fail. Here, but rural roads, in the rural roads, the guidelines mentioning that 60% reliability can be taken. Means there is a chance that after 20 years, the pavement may be 40% of chances that the pavement may fail. That's what we have to take, right? Then this is the formula for given to find out the what is the total number of the repetitions. Right here, the SR is the stress ratio. I'll know that stress ratio is the ratio of the stress due to the loads to the flexure strength of the concrete, right? So that's what. And let us quickly see the how to design the slab thickness here. So as I told you, in case of the when the number of the commercial vehicle is less than 50, we have to go for only low stress. If it is more than 50 and less than 150, load and temperature stress, and more than 150, so we have to go for the fatigue analysis also. Now that's what is given here, and only edge stresses need to be considered here. So there are these concepts also I'll skip here because last 2 days other resource person have explained about how the bending take place during the daytime and nighttime. The similar here also similar to the bending will be same. And this is the one you can see here. As I told you, like in the case of the rural concrete pavements, we take a standard legal axle load of 100 kilonewtons, 50 kilonewtons this side and 50 kilonewtons that side. So that's why you have to place if you can place the two wheels here at the edge of the pavement. This is the total wheel load total wheel load. I can say this is a 50 kilonewtons, 25 on this wheel and 25 on this wheel. We have we have Westergaard equation to find out the stress at the edge region. This is the equation that we have to use. But one thing you please remember, so these things, of course, are all aware that, don't want to explain this one. One very important aspect that we have to see here, the Westergaard equation given here, which is the P is a point load here. P is the point load. And another important thing that we have to remember is this Westergaard equation is suitable for the single wheel load only. It cannot be suitable for you cannot use the Westergaard equation to find out the stresses in case of the dual wheel load. Suppose here, in this case, we have there are two wheels, dual wheel loads. So those for the dual wheel loads, we cannot use this Westergaard equation. So there is a small method is given in IRC SP 62 to find out the radius. Suppose if you have the dual wheels, what is the influence of these dual wheels on the pavement? When you consider this dual wheel into the single wheel load, there is a small procedure is given in IRC SP 62. As per this procedure, we have there's two wheels. One wheel is this one. This the wheel means prints and tire prints. See, always generally we have some we assume that it's a tire print is in a circular shape. It's not a circular shape. It's a combination of a rectangle and elliptical. You can see that there is a combination of a rectangle and elliptical here. We have the two tires and there is a gap distance between these two tires, right? So these are the generally if you take the total length of the tire print is L. Here it is the rectangle shape. The length of this rectangle shape is 0.4 L, and this one is 0.3 L. This is 3 L. So the total load divided by the area of this combined area, the total load divided by the combined area will give the radius of equivalent circular contact area that is given in this formula. So this radius we have to use in this equation. This radius we have to use in this equation to find out the stress at the edge region, right? So like you can see that coming to the pavement design aspect. So here in case one, as I told you, only the stress due to the load we have to take. In case of the case two, stress due to load and temperature that we have to take. And case three, we have to take the fatigue analysis, right? So recommended design procedure, that's what. Whatever I have discussed that one, that is there in this case. So we have to take the wheel loads and wheel load and temperature in which case, right? So here we have IRC like SP 62. They have provided an Excel sheet. So using that Excel sheet, easily we can able to design the pavements. I will let me just take that Excel sheet also here. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah, you can see this Excel sheet here. It is given case 1 only wheel load stresses, case 2 temperature and wheel load stresses without fatigue, case 3 fatigue analysis considered load and temperature. Right here, simply what we have to do is some of the data that we need to enter. What is that one is the case 1, whether case 1, 2, 3. So this case 1, 2, 3 comes from the
Excuse
total.
me, sir.
Chetan.
Sir, actually your screen is not visible, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'll just increase the. Now is it okay, Chetu?
No, sir. No, sir. Sir, you have to present the screen, sir.
Yeah, it's been.
Yeah, okay, okay. Now, Chaitanya? Chaitanya?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
It is coming. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You can see that here the enter the data, case 1, case 2, case 3, depends on the traffic, total number of the commercial vehicles per day. So accordingly, we have to enter this one, whether it fall in case 1, case 2 or case 3. So once you can enter this one, we need to enter only 2-3 parameters. Like you can see that the modulus of velocity and all, it will take automatically. And modulus of subgrade reaction, if it is changed, definitely it will change, depends upon the CBR of the subgrade and what is the type of the layer that you are providing on that. So that you have to enter. And temperature differential. The temperature differential we have to enter means it depends upon the temperature differential also. Of course, here in this case in the Excel sheet need not necessary to enter because automatically it will calculate from the trial thickness that you are given. The very important that you have to enter is the trial thickness actually here. If you can enter this trial thickness, now you can see here in this case is the number of the commercial vehicles is 400, so that it's fall under the case 3. So then trial thickness, if you can enter automatically, what will happen? So here we have the screens like for the case 1 and case 2. These are all, this will directly, it will become inactive and directly you will find the case 3 sheet here. In this case, total number of the vehicles for fatigue analysis means like from the 400 that you are giving is the total number of the commercial vehicles per day that are expecting on a particular road. Based on that, it will automatically calculate is the total number of the vehicles and the stress due to wheel load. Wheel load means that as I explained you, 100 kilonewtons is the standard legal load that we take. So 50 kilonewtons that will take on the dual wheel. So based on that, whatever the Westergaard formula I have given provided there, using that formula, it will calculate this one. Ratio of L by L. This depends upon the what is the panel size that you are giving. You know that width of the pavement is 3.75. A length will varies. Some you can go for the 3.75 or 3.5 or 4 meters. As it is guidelines is mentioning that you can vary the length of the panel from 2 meters to 4 meters. So accordingly, you can select the length so that L by L will change. A correction paper, this is the Bradbury coefficient for the calculation of the temperature will change. So based on this one, it will finally calculate the temperature, finally calculate the stress. The total stress for the fatigue, that is the stress due to the temperature and load. So this one is the stress and you will get the stress ratio. Stress ratio means stress due to the load and temperature by flexure strength of the concrete. What is the flexure strength that you are taking? So as I told you, we have to maintain the minimum flexure strength of 3.8. For M30 grade concrete, you will get that one, so that you will get the stress ratio here. So it will give what is the allowable number of the repetitions, where that formula is that based on that one, it will give allowable number of the repetition. A cumulative fatigue damage is the allowable number of the repetition. Here it is something in this case, if you can see, it is approximately 180 lakhs 11,000. And here is the total number of the vehicles that you are expecting only, that is 53, right? 5 lakhs 37. But here is, it can allow even 180 lakhs in this case. So you can even reduce the thickness of the slab also. You can try with, suppose I'll just see here, instead of thickness, if I put 0.24, I'll put, okay. So now you can see that, cumulative damage is 0.42. Right here, the allowable number of the repetitions has significantly reduced. If I put, I can take the 0.23. Now it is unsafe. It became unsafe because allowable number of the repetition here is 1,31,000, and here the design number of the vehicles that you are getting is 5,37,000. So you have to play with this. You have to do some trial and error. Finally, you have to see that what is the economical thickness that we have to find out from this analysis. Okay. So with this, I'll stop here because of the lack of time. I could not cover some of the design aspects deeply. I request you kindly go through this IRCSP 62 because this is also very much required for the design of the low volume roads. See, design of the low volume roads with IRC 58 means definitely will get more pavement thickness. That's not required actually. You can provide economical thickness. I can say, I cannot say use the word called less economical pavement thickness using this IRC SP 62 guidelines. If you have any doubt with related to the design parameters, see the resource persons whom I called in the last 2-3 days and today and afternoon tomorrow, all the resource persons are very much approachable. If you have any doubt anytime in any of the areas, you can take their mail ID, just drop mail and they can ready to help you out. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your wonderful presentation, sir. Really, it is a value-added presentation to the participants. Dear participants, if you have any queries, please post it in the chat box.
Otherwise, they can send me also mail. Chaitanya, we are running out of the time because we have to join again at 2:30. We have another wonderful presentation in the afternoon that is on pervious concrete pavements. Okay. So I request everyone kindly go for lunch and join by 2:15 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, Chaitanya.
Okay, sir. Just a minute, sir. I request my colleague Vishnath to give the summary of this presentation. Over to Vishnath.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Vishnath, sir.
Yes, sir. Myself, Vishnath, assistant professor from the Department of Civil Engineering. So I will take just a minute for summarizing this session. So Dr. Amarendra sir actually started his presentation with a brief overview on scope of IRC guidelines for low volume roads. Later on, he explained the various factors governing the pavement design. He specifically emphasized design traffic for thickness evaluation, which is a crucial factor for the design of rural roads. He also stressed why thin bituminous layer should be preferred for the pavements. He further elaborated various laboratory tests that needs to be conducted for the design aspects. He also particularly stressed stabilization aspects for the rural roads. Also, during his entire presentation, he shared some of his practical experiences in this particular field. Thank you, sir. Regret for making this session a bit long. So we'll meet again at 2:15. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Vishnath. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your valuable time.
Yeah.
Again, we will meet at 2:30.